Fed up of floor robes, driven to distraction and drowning with doom boxes? Tired of living in chaos? Welcome to Decluttering Untangled, how to declutter when you're overwhelmed, ADHD or autistic. I'm going to help you uncover the secrets to decluttering, no matter what hurdles you face. You'll discover how to declutter, de-stress and transform your world. I'm Heather Tingle, reformed hoarder, neurodivergent declutter queen, and your guide through the maze of mess. Let's get untangled. Hello Untanglers, and welcome to another episode of Decluttering Untangled with me, your host, Heather Tingle. Now, today's episode is like a second part of last week's podcast, and that's taking a psychological look, so a bit deeper, into looking at our past and how trauma can impact our decluttering. And I think it's important to understand why we think the way we do, because once you recognise why you're thinking the way you do, you're in a far better position to counteract it, and that helps you move forward decluttering. Now, I'm going to preface this episode with a possible trigger warning about trauma. However, I'm not going to go into any specific traumas. I'm not going to go deep at all. So I'm hoping it will be really helpful and not too triggering at all. But as always, with these podcasts, my mouth works faster than my brain sometimes. So I have zero idea what I'm going to say until I've actually said it. So you have been warned. Now, to start with, I think there is always a lot of guilt when it comes to decluttering. And I think as we're quite emotional people anyway, we add our emotion onto objects and link them. So if an item is linked to someone that caused you trauma in some way, it can feel that the association is linked to that item, and the emotion is linked to that item, and that person is linked to that item, and the trauma is linked to that item. However, if it makes us feel bad, the guilt of letting go of the hurt or the memory or just the object itself can sometimes feel like we're being unhand in some way. So if you've had something from someone and they were not a positive thing in your life, they were quite toxic in some way, we're really good at feeling guilty. We're really good at making ourselves feel bad. And sometimes we will not let something go, even though it makes us feel bad, because maybe they wouldn't like it. Maybe it feels quite underhand. It feels like we're doing something for us and we're not allowed to do that. And that they wouldn't like it if they knew we'd let it go and moved on in some way. So it can feel a lot like you're letting go of the trauma by letting it go, which I think is such a massive positive. And sometimes, though, that can give us cause for concern that if we're letting go of something bad, because sometimes we want to hold on to it, to remind ourselves that it happened, to remind ourselves how bad it was, keeping items tied to negative memories almost as proof that experience happened to me and it was horrible and it was terrible. And that's especially if you've been gaslit by somebody or your trauma was minimized by others in some way. So it might be that you're in hospital and you've still got the wristband from being in the hospital. And when other people said, oh, don't worry about it, everybody gets that, or you'll be fine, and actually it was a terrible experience for you. Or it might be an item from an ex that was quite traumatic in some way. And sometimes you want to hold on to that. So quite famously, a lot of people hang on to all the paperwork they gather for their divorce to prove how bad it was in the divorce. But actually, all you really need to keep is the decree, not all the proof that you had to facilitate. But sometimes you feel that you need to hold on to that. Go, look how terrible a person they were. I wasn't making it up. It was a terrible thing. And actually, when you hold on to those things, when you hold on to the items, it keeps you linked to that pain. And it prevents you from fully healing and getting past it. And you can get past it. And I think the thing to remember is you're not letting go of the past. You're just making room for the future in your home. You're letting go of the object, not your experience, not what happened. But a lot of time it does help you move forward from it, which is really good. One of the main ways, though, I see trauma impacting clients is due to financial trauma or worry over scarcity. So maybe they've grown up with nothing and been very poor and struggled, or maybe they've been okay and then at some point they've had everything taken away from them and had to start again from scratch. And that can make it really difficult to let things go. But also it can make you more prone to buying in excess of what you need and looking for bargains, or what, in my opinion, what's even worse, and I don't want to guilt and trip anybody into this, but a lot of clients I see look to ways to find extra money, like selling things on at a profit. So I'm going to buy that. I'm not going to use it for me, but I can sell it on because I can make some money out of it. But then they never actually get round to doing it. And I think that is a way of looking for the money that you feel you've got to hold on to things, and it's very difficult to let go. But it also comes out in the "but I deserve it" mindset when buying stuff. Of course you deserve it. You deserve whatever you want, whatever is going to make you happy. However, a lot of those things isn't the stuff. So I think it's important that you recognise that thought and that worry over money or scarcity, and you look at it at whether it's actually a real scarcity right now. Is it a real possibility? Or actually, are you actually okay? Could you just wait and get it tomorrow instead? Just give you that time to think about it, put that little gap in place. Because I think you need to acknowledge that a lot of the times when we worry, that you just need to take a moment and think, acknowledge at this moment in time, you're safe, you're secure, and you're looked after. You have money in the bank, you have food in the cupboards. Anything that you don't have right now, you can get pretty easily, and it's okay. Now, the problem with this is that requires some trust that your future self will look after you, regardless of what life is going to throw at you. Let's face it, life is always going to throw something at you. Always. It always does. You're always going to be thrown a curveball. But you need to feel secure in yourself that whatever happens in the future, I am okay to deal with it. I will get that item when I need that item. I do not need it now. It is okay. It will be there for me. And I think in practical terms, there are things you can do to ease this worry, like setting up an emergency fund. So having a small amount of money, or a large amount of money if you've got it, in the bank that you don't touch, that is your rainy day fund. If something breaks, it can be replaced with that fund. If you struggle and you don't get paid 1 month, or you lose your job, that you've got that fund that helps you through it. And I think also things like having your insurances in place, so your house insurance, life insurance, critical illness cover, those kind of things, because that's a real practical step that you can do to give you that sense of security that you need. And I think one of the best things I did when I was decluttering was I started selling my stuff off. I got quite addicted to selling my stuff, and I put that money into an emergency fund, which I had never had that fallback position before. And it really did give me a really great sense of security that I needed, because money makes me panic, and it still does now. But I've got those funds in place, I've got those insurances in place, and I can panic a lot less about my future self because I've got that there if I need it. And that really did help. And I think one of the last ways that trauma links with clutter is we seem to have a lot of shame. And whether that's as individuals in our own self, so not feeling good enough, not being accepted by others. And let's face it, if we're neurodivergent, we've already got that little label attached to ourselves that we've probably had growing up of being a bit different or sensitive or a bit of a weirdo. And I think that links to feeling not good enough, and that can feel shame, whether that's about us or our home. So we tend to hide who we really are and what we love in order to be more acceptable to other people. And our homes should be a reflection of who we really are and what makes us happy. Shouldn't be for anybody else. We shouldn't have to hide that weird stuff out of the way. We should be able to have it out and not have the boring, dull stuff out that we think is more acceptable to other people. Because that makes us just hide our clutter. Or it might be if you go shopping, you might hide the new items. So we really need to embrace who we are and our decisions, whether they are good or bad. And to do that, we need to work on our self-confidence and our ability to trust ourselves with our own decisions. And I know that Until I decluttered, I did not trust my own decision-making process at all. I would always ask somebody else and ask others for advice on what they felt to do. Like, what should I do with this? What should I do with that? And I would, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Because I always felt that they knew more than me. But honestly, I've learned in my life and in my home, I am more than capable of making the right decisions. And that really does only come with practice. So the more decluttering decisions you do, the more you trust yourself and you find a lighter, happier way to live with you and your home. So I really hope that's given you a few things to think about. So until next time, remember you're not alone, be kind to yourself and keep untangling. Thanks for joining me for today's episode of Decluttering Untangled. If you found anything that I've said today helpful, please do me a favour, hit that subscribe button or leave me a review. It's like receiving a virtual high five that keeps me going and lets me know that I'm helping real people out there and I'm making a difference. Please remember, you're not alone in this. I'm building a community of fellow untanglers over on Facebook. Just visit the show notes for the link to my free decluttering community. So until next time, remember, you're not alone, you're not lazy, you can untangle your life.